Welcome to My Parents Lied to Me, the podcast about navigating aging, loss, and all the midlife changes no one warned us about. I'm Nicole Porter, here with real stories and expert advice to help you face what's now and what's next.
Live.
We're live. Welcome to my podcast, My Parents Lied to Me. I have a friend here, Dave. We actually met on LinkedIn because we're both Sparties that were living in Arizona.
We
So
are.
we connected that way, and I was telling him about your parent porter and my safe family preparedness plan. And we were like, oh my gosh, we need to collaborate and talk to more families because the service that I offer is a proactive service. A financial plan is one piece of the puzzle because when I've asked families like, hey, do you know what to do? They're like, oh yeah, we have the financial plan. We're good. We have the estate plan. We're good. But there's just so many more components to it. But I do want to stress the importance of having a financial professional, a major piece of the puzzle. So I'm going to let you take it from here, Dave, introduce yourself and your company and what you do, and we'll just go from there.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks, Nicole. First of all, thank you for having me. This is really cool. So my name's Dave Nacke, and my company is Southwest Financial Concepts. I'm based in the Valley, but I cover all of Arizona as well as multiple other states, mostly in the Western United States. So if you have friends and family who live in another state, we can talk about that because there's a good probability that I can help them. So I'm not just local. I'm also part of a culture of over 1,700 financial advisors who all network together. We're originally based in Kansas, but we cover every nook and cranny of the entire country. So if I can't help you in a state, I can find one of my colleagues who can certainly give you a hand as well. I've been doing this now for a little over 7 years. I came out of corporate America in the outdoor and sporting goods industry of all things. Growing up in Michigan, there's our Sparty Alliance there. I grew up outdoorsy and skiing and all that kind of stuff. And that led into me being in that industry for many years. So I was part of executive management of a number of different large companies. Really, really good. And when that ride ended 8 years ago, I decided that it was really time to listen to that inner calling that I had from somebody who preceded me in this business, one of my uncles. I really wish that I would have started helping people doing what I do years ago. The satisfaction is huge. And when you really engage with somebody and see what a difference putting together a concrete plan makes when it has to actually start executing, the relief that people can go through, all of the emotional parts of life that come when somebody gets ill or aged or in a financial pickle, to know that they've got a plan in place, it's so huge. It's so huge.
And what age do most people come to you? Like all ages? Do people just reach a point? They're like, oh my gosh, I need help. And it's too
All of
late.
all of the above. My oldest client, I love this lady to death. She will turn 100 on September 1st. And we started retirement planning for her at 97.
Oh my gosh.
So never too late.
Okay.
My youngest client is now 7 months old, happens to be my grandson, but we've already started all 10 of our grandkids' retirement plans. And we put money into it, parents match it. It's not a lot, but over the course of their entire lifespan, it'll be pretty significant.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. When families come to you, how often do they consider taking care of aging parents?
it's a huge turning point in our culture right now. We've been around for years, but now we're facing the reality that all of us are living longer. There are things that are out there that, whether you buy into it or not, but as we live longer, we get more exposed to illness and the chances go up. In fact, statistically, if you are age 60 or over, there's a 75% chance that you're going to need some sort of care. Now, that care could be in your home, that could be adult daycare, or it could be full on moving into a care facility like memory care, et cetera. And typically it starts off over here and it kind of migrates maybe all the way over here. Hopefully it stops somewhere in the middle, but it could go over here. I have one client right now. She's in North Scottsdale and she has been in a care facility for 14 years
Wow.
at over $120,000 a year expense. So imagine
And they were
what that
financially prepared for that?
they were not.
Okay.
They were not because nobody had really sat down with them and really just kind of shared the facts so that they could make good decisions.
Now, is it because the older generation just didn't anticipate the financial needs? Or is it that so much inflation and everything, the price has gone up so much that now the kids just have to get involved because there's no way they can cover it?
Well, and I think that's kind of one of those all of the above, and that's a great question because typically it used to be that a care facility was kind of thought of that you had to be wealthy to do that. And if it's $120,000 a year to some degree, yes, you do need to be wealthy to do that. So a lot of that burden fell upon family members, and family members took that on. They quit their job, they worked less at their job. So there was a financial burden, not just in terms of the care, but there was a financial burden that the family bore because they might have changed their lifestyle completely. If you had two breadwinners in the family and all of a sudden now you have one breadwinner, what does that do to your household budget? Because you're taking care of mom, or in some cases, you're taking care of a grandparent. So we've always had this situation where we may have kids at home that we're taking care of and raising, but we also may have responsibility to take care of parents and grandparents as well. We've just layered on so much complexity in our lives. And culturally in America, we tend to be workaholics. So that 9 to 5 is really more like 8 to 7 and throw in a couple Saturdays. And
Right.
and and
Exactly.
all of a sudden, now you throw in a big twist where, my parent is sick. And we all love our parents. We all want to take really, really good care of them. And, I'm fortunate that I still have one. My dad's been gone a long time, but in fact, 19 years, I still miss him every single day. So,
I get
but we
that.
want to we want to show that love that they gave to us when we were little.
Right. Well, and I think conversations I didn't have, I mean, my parents passed in their 60s a year apart, but we had never had a conversation of like, what if one parent outlives the other? What happens if either one of them needed care? We've just kind of went la la la. My parents had their financial advisor. I'd never asked any questions, but kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I know how they worked. I know about what they made. I can't imagine that they saved that much. And I started thinking, like, I'm going to have to be the responsible child. I'm the single one, the oldest child with no family and kids. And I'm like, I'm going to be the one that has to become the caretaker or financially take care of them because my brother has a family and he's got his own responsibilities.
Right.
So that was my big why before losing my parents. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this awesome real estate career going and I'm going to be financially free and, I'll be able to travel home whenever I want and take care of my parents. And it didn't happen that way. And, when I saw their finances at the end of the day, I was like, oh my God, thankfully they didn't get sick for a long time. Like, I just
Right.
can't imagine
Right.
how we would have financially been able to afford if mom would have had to go into a care facility because her health had always been kind of down there and without my dad and we would have had to take care of mom and I'm like, I just don't know how we could have afford it.
Right. I mean, there's affordability and then there's the emotional part of it. And they are intrinsically tied together. But if you've got peace of mind that you've got a nest egg not to retire on, but another nest egg that could be used just in case somebody got sick and all of a sudden there were significant expenses. You know, the amazing thing is that none of us want to think about this, but there are a lot of retirees, a lot of aged who end up filing bankruptcy. And they don't file bankruptcy because they're going on cruises and living these lavish lifestyles. They file bankruptcy because they're living longer and then they get sick and then they're financially wiped out. And then the last thing you want to do is become a ward of the state and go on Medicare because your net worth, first of all, has to be down to $2,000 in Arizona. It goes as high as $3,000. So just imagine if any of us were worth $2,000. You have no choice of what doctors you go to. They can move you around. I mean, it is truly a welfare state, both care wise as well as financially. So that's a bad option.
Well, and there's a lot more to that. I think there's a lot of rules around even getting paid to get to that $2,000 income. Or I know families have to manipulate a lot of money and sell things and do stuff
Right.
to get that extra assistance, but it's not like you can just do it overnight. It's gotta be something that you've planned for too.
Well, and now the state will do a look back. So if you have liquidated assets or transferred assets into somebody else's name, the state will go back and say, no, those are actually your assets. So you don't qualify for Medicare.
Right.
So, and they go back 10 years. It was 7, and now they're going back even farther. They do their due diligence because it is a burden on the taxpayers, so they have a legal responsibility to the taxpayers to go back and make sure that somebody's not defrauding the system. So they go back and they do it, effectively very well.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing too, like, okay, so say mom and dad don't have money, I decide to be a caretaker.
Right,
I physically wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things. My mom was a little overweight. We would have needed help to, bathe her and move her and do things, and that costs money. And I don't think people think about the in-home care. They're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna be the caretaker," but sometimes the caretaker needs help, and that costs money. And it could be, like, up to $1,000 a day when I've talked to some of these advisors.
right, and you and I both circulate in that world. We work with a lot of caregivers, and some of them aren't physically big enough to pick up a large person, so they don't have that upper body strength to get someone out of a bathtub or, if they've sat down to use the restroom, that they can't get them back up. So those are all real world things that have to be thought through, and having a real strategic plan, both financially as well as physically. The environment that they're living in, can they manage that? And you do a great job with helping people prepare for that part of their life.
Right. Well, and that's why I created the system is because I started hearing all the stories and visualizing the future that obviously did not happen with my parents because they passed. But I was like, this isn't just about the money. This isn't just about a will. This is like their home. There was a lot of obstacles. And my dad had told me, it hurts to do the stairs sometimes. And so I sleep in the chair. And I was like, wait, wait, wait. When did this happen? And at that point, we're like, we might be on a time crunch here. And with a real estate background too, I'm like, man, there's a lot of changes that we should have started doing 10 years ago as they were getting older. Like, we never thought about how the stairs were going to affect them. They've been doing the stairs, no
Right,
problems.
right.
And they don't like always tell you all these things either. So again, you need to have a financial plan because you can't just downsize, especially here in Arizona. You can't just downsize your house. You lose so much equity. And where's that money going? Are they reinvesting that back with the financial planner? Are they having to live on it? Like, what does that look like? So, I mean, that's why I wanted to come up with a whole system because there's a bigger picture that people are not visualizing when they're planning for their aging parents with the financial planner and with the estate planner. Like, people don't update all those things as life continues to happen.
I was listening to a podcast. I think most people are familiar with the gentleman named Warren Buffett, from Berkshire Hathaway. He's one of the wealthiest people ever in the history of the world, much less in today's times. But he's in his mid 90s now, and he did a podcast that was how would he do things differently if he could turn the time back to age 70? And it was really interesting because he talked about family legacy and he talked about being very open with family in terms of one, telling them exactly what happens to the wealth that he would leave behind because he can't possibly spend all the money that he's worth, but being just very, very open. What would happen to him if he got sick and he had to go into a care facility? He goes, and this was a very hard conversation to have with my kids because your kids never want to think about living life without their parents. It's a reality that we'll all face at some point in time. So I was really fascinated by this podcast coming from a man who is self built and has done obviously very well for himself beyond what any of us could ever dream to ever reach. But him talking very openly and very honestly about these are the conversations you need to have with your parents. And he said, you need to have these conversations with your parents before they become sick. You need to have a plan in place. And if it doesn't happen, bless the Lord. You don't have to do it, but at least you're all on the same page. He goes, and you should be having those conversations when your parents are in their 50s and you were in your 20s, not waiting until your parents are in their 70s. And I was like, you know what? That's really, really, really good advice for what you and I do for people is like, what's the right timeline to start talking about this? And it's tough. I mean, I've got 2 kids and I remember well being in my 30s when they were young and getting them to brownies and soccer and this and worrying about my job and worrying about taking care of my wife and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you're up at 4:30 in the morning and you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and you're grateful that you can get 6 hours of sleep and you really get 3 because your brain doesn't turn off and then it turns back on. So, I've run that rat race as a parent. So to sit down with my parents, to sit down and have a plan in place and force them to have a conversation that's going to be awkward. It's just not high on the list of things to get done. It probably fell out to 101 of the top 100.
Right.
But it's really important to do that,
Right. No, I think you hit that point, like, in your mid, late 30s where you're just like, "We're getting older." Like,
right?
I mean, I'm getting a little older, my parents are getting a little older, like, when did they get older? Like, I don't remember
When
this.
did that happen, right?
Yeah. I'm like, but if they're older, that means I'm older, like, what's going on here? And I
Yeah,
think, like I said, that is a conversation nobody wants to have, and, when my dad passed, I was home a couple weeks before he did, and I was like, "Hey, we're sitting around, like, do we know what to do? We just had the estate planning attorney at our real estate office." And my dad's like, "Yeah, we just finished our will. You wanna read it?" And I was like, "Nope, la, la, la,
right?
just wanted to
Exactly,
know." And,
exactly.
I didn't know he was gonna be gone a week later, but then we were, like, planning a funeral and all this stuff, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know the answers to any of these questions." And my family had had some conversations without me. I mean, I live in Arizona, they're in Michigan, but it still caught me off guard. And that's why my family preparedness system is just, even if it's just conversations, if you can't get things, legally, financially in order, at least have some idea of what the wishes would be, what you would do in an emergency, because, hey, you need to know who their financial planner is. That's in my workbook.
Right,
Because if I can't pay for mom and dad, I need to know what their finances are and what does that look like? How do kids just they don't automatically get access to that. I assume they need a power of attorney or
they do need powers of attorney, and they need different powers of attorney for medical, they need different powers of attorney to access bank records, they need different powers of attorney for real estate documents, and a lot of that can be tied up by somebody who, does wills and trusts, but if we could talk just a second about, a financial planner. In the world of finance, there are so many different tools that you can possibly have. And a financial planner, for the most part, they're worrying about building wealth. They're worrying about building that nest egg. So when you hit 65, check that box off. Boom, go have a nice life. How do you take that and make that income? But what they legally can't talk about because they're not licensed is the need to explore options to fund healthcare. Most people think Blue Cross Blue Shield. Nicole, I can't tell you how many people I run into who say, "Oh, I've got Medicare. I'm good." Well, Medicare will cover some long-term care. They cover the first 100 days, and then their money runs out, and then they kick to the curb, and then then you gotta figure out what your real plan A would have been in the first place. Do the kids come in? What do you do? Do you move in with the kids, etcetera? So Medicare is not the resource that people think it is in terms of long-term care needs.
okay,
So, when you think about what I do, the tools that I use, and we've talked a little bit about the fact that whether you're using a hammer or whether you switch to a wrench, you have to switch the tools, but at the same time, you're still building that house type of a concept. For years, as an insurance advisor, people have kind of poo pooed looking at insurance for funding their potential long term health care. And a lot of it was, grandma or grandpa might have had a policy that was called a use it or lose it. They put money into it. And if they didn't end up uh, needing it at all, then the insurance company just kept the money. It was, you know, kind of like your car and your home insurance. Think about how many people have car insurance that have never filed a claim, but they pay their $300 every 6 months and they do it for years.
right,
That insurance company keeps all that money. So life insurance companies issue long-term care insurance, but they now issue long-term care insurance that you get the money back, not the person who paid into it, but their beneficiaries. So it's never lost. It's always there if you need it, and it can become part of your estate plan.
gotcha. So how often does somebody need to review their financial plan? Because I mean, those are topics that people still have to go do out on their own. They still have to go find their own estate planning attorney. They still need to have those conversations with their parents about the long-term care. There are the different life insurance products.
One of the things I specialize in, yeah. I call it a holistic plan where we look at not only income, but we look at protection.
Okay.
How do we protect that asset that you built with your financial planner, your investment guy, that had a 401k forever, and he can't legally or she can't legally tell you that you can take part of your 401k and convert that into a fully paid long-term care strategy. If you do use it, great. You've had that protection. So instead of losing your 401k money, you've got your insurance covered or your care covered.
You don't do the stocks and things like that.
I don't do
So
stocks
that's
and
a
all that kind
different
of
type of
stuff.
financial planner.
Yeah, that's somebody who's really up to those retirement age days to build that big nest egg. They've got 40 years. They can worry about the dips and the peaks and valleys of, the stock market and all that kind of stuff. Mine is taking all those pieces of the puzzle for the last 30 years of your life.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I think, like, my clients, your clients, and why we need to collaborate because families aren't always up to speed. They're like, "Oh, I did that a long time ago. I'm done with that," and it's
Right.
not. You need to keep preparing and you need to keep revisiting things, especially as you age and you have life changes. Like that is a time that they need to talk to their financial plan.
Yeah, and you really should review those. I mean, some people want to review them every year. There are people who, every other year is fine. That's my job as a professional to calendar those types of visits with folks to know what their comfort level is, because when you get a little older and care needs can start in your 30s. There are people who need long-term care in their 30s. So doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're getting older or are old. I could tell you plenty of stories, with people who had a stroke in their 30s and now are disabled. And how do they fund the rest of their lives? So it's not necessarily just confined to an older phenomenon.
Right. Very complex. I guess 20 to 30 minutes is not enough time to talk about everything.
No, it's probably
Yeah.
not. But at the same time, there are specialists like myself. I don't do auto and home insurance. They sell life insurance policies. They usually do like inexpensive term so they can hit their quota numbers. There are financial planners. Only 5 to 10% of them are legally licensed or trained to talk about life insurance and specifically long term care type life insurance products. So they're not the answers. You really need a specialist like myself or my whole network that covers the whole country to bring that level of expertise. You deserve it.
Right. Yep. Whole picture planning.
Exactly. Exactly. I call it holistic, and it really, some people go, that's a little too
Yeah. But I mean, there's
nano,
a
nano, but it is really taking a holistic look at what your retirement strategy is and protecting your nest egg, not continuing to grow your nest egg, but changing your mind shift. You're not in a growth phase anymore. You're about protecting, and you need a different tool to do that.
right. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to partner with you because I'm not the professional. I'm not the financial planner. I'm not the estate planning attorney. There's a lot of other professionals in the senior industry or whatever the family needs are.
Exactly.
I am just kind of the holistic, big picture plan, how to have the conversations, what things to think about as families start having these life events.
Well,
So
exactly.
I just want people to be able to ask better questions and get pointed in the right direction for the right people that they need to protect their legacy.
I think we're a culture, we don't know what we don't know. And it's okay to give yourself permission to not know.
Right,
But it's, in my humble opinion, it's not okay since we are responsible for helping take care of not only ourselves and our family and protecting them, but also our parents as well. Is if there's an opportunity to learn and then decide if you need to act on what you learned, great. And if you don't, at least you knew going into what other options that you had.
right. Yeah, I think you can't ask enough questions because you just don't know what life is going to hand you
Yeah.
and at what time.
Right, and you don't have to go too deep down the rabbit hole. It's like we talked. You can read the time or you can find out how the watch works, but you're just a little bit smarter just because you asked a couple of questions and learned something.
Right. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Really appreciate the it feels like a very short conversation. I feel like we didn't even cover anything. I think we got a nice conversation for families to start thinking about some of these things. And again, I will put Dave's information in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to Dave and have a conversation, like he's been doing this a long time and really cares about families. And we're working together to make sure that people proactively plan with their family. Thank you, Dave. My name's Nicole Porter, and I am the founder of Your Parent Porter. I created the Safe Family Preparedness System where I help families have the conversations, look at the big picture, and proactively plan for who knows what's coming down the line. So thanks for joining me today, and we'll chat again soon. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks for listening to My Parents Lied to Me, where we face the realities of aging, family change, and midlife reinvention with a little grit and a lot of heart. If today's conversation helped you feel less alone, I would love for you to like it, share it with a friend, and hit follow so you don't miss the next story or tip that might help you navigate what's next. Because even if our parents didn't tell us everything, we're figuring it out one chapter at a time.